Hello again. People in the comments here sometimes accuse me of moaning about large-scale immigration without offering any positive plans to do anything about it. Perhaps we ought to ask ourselves what can be done about the situation. In the 1960s, various people, including of course Enoch Powell, were in favour of repatriation, that is to say sending immigrants back to the countries from which they had come. One heard slogans such as "Stop immigration, start repatriation," or more bluntly, send them back where they came from. It was claimed that if enough money were offered, then many immigrants would be happy to return to the countries from which they had come. Such a strategy today is impossible, regardless of any attractions which it might hold for some people. For one thing, the numbers involved now run into millions. And for another, many of the immigrants now have families of their own. There are an awful lot of adults who were born and brought up in Britain. Of course, it is possible to deprive even somebody who was born in this country of his or her citizenship. We saw this done with people who chose to go and join the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. Even though some of those people had been born in this country, they were still deprived of their citizenship on the grounds that they held dual nationality. It would hardly be possible to undertake such an exercise with the estimated 15% of the population in this country who are non-white and either immigrants or descended from immigrant families. The idea of deportation, repatriation, is simply not feasible. Where does that leave us then with practical steps which could be taken? A halt to any further legal immigration to this country, coupled with a ruthless approach to illegal immigration, would of course be a good beginning. Neither of the two main political parties in Britain show any enthusiasm for such an idea, and both are convinced that the prosperity of this country is inextricably linked to high rates of immigration. In Hungary, they've got a very tough approach to immigration, but also there are currently efforts there to increase the birth rate among the native population. This is done by means of financial incentives. Any Hungarian woman who has 4 children, for instance, is exempt from income tax for the rest of her life. Young married couples are offered £25,000 loans when they marry, and if they have 3 children quickly enough, then they don't have to repay the money. I'm sure viewers know that in Britain the birth rate among those of foreign ancestry is much higher than it is for white British people, which is of course why the name Mohammed, with various spellings, is now the most common boy's name in the entire country. Even without further immigration, the proportion of those in this country of white British ancestry is in inexorable decline. I am on this channel chronicling what I see as the ill effects of unrestricted immigration. I point out the difference between the way things are and the way that they were supposed to be, or the way that politicians claim they are. There is a very big difference. I suppose that I hope at the back of my mind that if I'm able to reach enough people and show the lies that our masters are trying to persuade us to swallow, that perhaps this might affect attitude and cause at least a few people to sit up and ask questions. As for what can actually be done at this late stage, the only solutions which I could see working would be the division of the country into self-contained units, the break-up of the kingdom, in fact. Not along the old lines of England, Scotland and Wales, but perhaps along ethnic fault lines. I do not advocate such a thing, and I believe it would be a tragedy, but we have reached a point in this country's history when all the outcomes we consider are bad, and it might perhaps, in the not too distant future, be a matter of choosing the least worst option.